So what do you think about Labour's new grocery tax, known as the Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR for short? It imposes a levy on retailers and manufacturers for the cost of collecting and disposing of packaging waste, which is currently funded by our council taxes. Now this tax is part of, you know what's coming, Labour's net zero targets, this push to green energy bull. But did you know it's set to cost British households up to £1.4 billion a year?
The tax plan for the families of deceased servicemen has caused a real storm of indignation and anger in society. Who could possibly consider this a reasonable decision? When MPs from the Labour Party supported the initiative to introduce an inheritance tax for those who gave their lives for the country, it caused a wave of protests that swept the whole country. These payments are intended to support families who have already made incredible sacrifices for our safety and freedom. Now, if these payments are not transferred to the spouse or civil partner, they will have to pay taxes. This means that grieving families who are already experiencing unbearable loss may face additional financial difficulties during the most difficult period for them. A well-known economist has rightly noted that the Labour Party should offer an alternative to the brutal policies supported by the Conservatives. He argues that banks and people with incomes above £100,000 could contribute more. Otherwise, inequality and poverty will only grow. Do you agree with this?
Did you vote for that? Because I certainly didn't. But then I didn't vote for Labour anyway, so that means, against everything that Labour told us, we, the working people of this country, will be paying more in taxes just to support Red Ed Miliband's stupid bloody green net zero agenda. Now, it doesn't come into force until January the 1st, but is this a coincidence or was this planned? We didn't hear anything about this until after Parliament has broken down ready for Christmas. So for the whole of the Christmas New Year period, we've got no way of talking to these people and getting back at them and saying, what in hell are you paying for? We've got to wait until Parliament resits in the new year.
The public reaction was harsh and emotional. People are furious, and honestly, who can blame them? It's not just numbers in reports. It's a matter of respect and support for those who risked their lives for our country. The participants of the radio broadcast called this proposal a disgrace and betrayal towards those who gave everything. Some even described it as outright disrespect for military personnel and their families. People are wondering, where is the empathy and gratitude? First, Rachel Reeves deprived pensioners of their winter fuel allowance, then forced farmers to pay inheritance tax, and now she is burdening military personnel who gave their lives for our country. It's an absolute disgrace. Starting in April 2027, children of military personnel and their unmarried partners will be required to pay inheritance tax on lump sum payments related to death in service. And despite the growing public discontent, Keir Starmer clearly supports Rachel Reeves and her decision on tax changes. To many, this looks like a risky bet, and critics wonder why Starmer is so insistent on supporting such an unpopular policy, especially when the public backlash continues to mount. Where is the justice? Where is humanity?
A quote here from a pretty prominent economist, and they say that Labour needs to provide an alternative for aggressive policies being prioritised by the Conservatives. The banks and those earning more than £100,000 could quite easily contribute a little more, and unless they do, inequality and poverty will inevitably soar in the months and years ahead. Do you agree with that statement?
The way that I believe that you can reduce inequality, reduce poverty, and actually also improve the living standards of ordinary working people, not in poverty, but struggling to get by, is through growing the economy.
You know, the economist that she quoted, that was actually you.
Well, look, I mean, I want to reduce poverty and inequality. I didn't go into politics, but how do you do that? What are the practical things that we can do?
Well, your suggestion in that quote was to tax the banks more and those earning more than £100,000 more, but you've gone back on that.
Well, look, the way that I think that we can lift people out of poverty and reduce inequality, as I say, is to get the economy growing.
Observers noted with alarm that Keir Starmer looked hesitant, stumbling over key points when pressed with questions about Rachel Reeves' reliability in his office. His avoidance of answering questions about her long-term prospects only added fuel to the fire of discontent. This made many people wonder, does Starmer really believe in this policy, or is he supporting Reeves only out of political necessity? His appearance clearly did not meet the expectations of a leader who should demonstrate strength and determination. Instead, his remarks only increased public discontent and gave rise to new speculation about the Labour Party's ability to cope with the growing anger of the people. The calls for clarity and accountability are getting louder, and it's becoming clear that both Reeves and Starmer are under tremendous pressure to defend their decisions in front of a disgruntled public.
The fundamental reason why we're seeing all this turmoil on the markets, pressure on the pound, huge increases in the cost of UK government borrowing, with all the bad effects that has for every family in the country, is that global markets have lost trust, lost confidence in Rachel Reeves and her economic policies. And when that happens, a Chancellor of the Exchequer has no way out. It's time for Rachel from accounts to go to human resources and get her P45. Read my column in the Daily Mail.
Rachel Reeves' tax proposals have caused a real storm of questions and outrage. This is not her first controversial move. Farmers, who form the backbone of the UK economy, have already felt the devastating effects of her policies. Previous tax changes carried out under her leadership led to the fact that many agricultural workers were on the verge of survival. Increased costs of basic resources and reduced livelihoods have brought some farmers to the brink of bankruptcy. Critics say that for an industry that feeds the nation, this looks like a betrayal. Now attention has shifted to the military, a group that certainly deserves the most support and respect. The introduction of taxes on payments to the families of military personnel who died in service shocked the public to the core. The reaction was full of bewilderment and anger. Why attack those who have already sacrificed so much for our safety? These payments are supposed to be a lifeline for grieving families, and turning them into taxable income seems absolutely heartless and unfair to many.
We're going to have to make difficult decisions. We need to fix the foundations before we can start rebuilding things in Britain. But unlike the previous government, I am going to be honest about the scale of the challenge. I'm going to level with people, and together we're going to rebuild our country based on that private sector business investment to get our economy growing. Because I asked the Treasury officials to give me an assessment of how much stronger the UK economy would be today if we'd have grown at just the average rate of OECD economies these last 14 years. And the answer is we'd be £140 billion bigger today, worth £5,000 for every family in Britain. We have got to grow our economy. It's the only way to improve living standards, keep taxes low, and have the money that we need for our dilapidated public services.
What is even more alarming is the growing sense of inconsistency and hypocrisy. But critics are quick to point out that while Reeves seems keen to impose new taxes on hard-working citizens, she completely ignores important issues such as illegal immigration. The main reason for all these market turmoil, pressure on the pound, and a significant increase in government borrowing costs is that global markets have lost confidence in Rachel Reeves and her economic policies. And when this happens, the finance minister has no choice, and the consequences of this can be disastrous for the whole country.
I think it's a disastrous budget. I think it'll do the country untold harm. To start off with, we didn't know it was coming, this massive 40 billion quid, because Starmer and Rachel Reeves lied to the electorate. They didn't tell them. In the manifesto, there is no mention whatsoever of half of these increases that they've introduced right out of the blue. If the electorate had known £40 billion worth of new taxes was required, I bet you the election would have been much, much closer. And can I just say, Carolyn, please, in my view, it's a typical Labour budget. Borrow, tax, spend. 27 million people work in the private sector. They have gone in there and taken an enormous amount of money out of the private sector, which is the sector which produces all the growth and all the profit in our community, and they've transferred it to 5.5 million people in the public sector who are not anything like as productive.
Discontent is growing with menacing force. People are starting to ask disturbing questions about Rachel Reeves' priorities. Why is she targeting key industries that ensure the stability of the UK? Why punish those who serve the country and support it in difficult times? These questions are hanging in the air, and so far there is no sign that anyone can calm the growing anxiety. If Reeves hoped that her policy would go unnoticed, she was sorely mistaken. The negative reaction is only getting worse, like a snowball rolling down a mountain. Rachel Reeves' public image is rapidly crumbling. Her reputation has already suffered due to the fact that many people call her approach to economic policy inconsistent and chaotic. Under her leadership, large companies began to cut jobs en masse, and critics openly point to the devastating consequences of her economic decisions. For the person charged with ensuring stability, The perception of disorder in its strategies causes deep dissatisfaction among both experts and ordinary citizens who feel that their future is under threat. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.